Good evening and welcome to the Marion Minor Cook Athenaeum. My name's Dante Topo and I'm one of our 2 student fellows this year. And one of the best things about moving to the senior apartments as a senior is that you get to cook for yourself. And one of the most frustrating things about moving to the senior apartments is that you have to cook for yourself. I found myself suddenly discovering that the 35 minutes I have between classes is not enough time to whip up some chicken Alfredo. So hopefully tonight I will learn a trick or two from our speaker, Claire Thomas, an alumna of CMC, class of '07, and creator of the popular food and lifestyle website, The Kitschy Kitchen. Claire started with a love of food history, which grew into multiple careers: commercial director and owner of her own production company, food and lifestyle personality, and author of her first cookbook, The Kitschy Kitchen: New Classics for Living Deliciously. Tonight, she will discuss how to build a brand around doing what you love, sharing the steps she took in building her brand around her love for food while discussing the basic principles needed to build a career based on your personal interests. And additionally, tonight's lovely meal was made according to her recipes. So, as always, audio and visual recording is strictly prohibited, and please join me in welcoming Claire Thomas back to the Athenaeum.
Hi, everybody. This is so exciting. This is a 10-year dream for me because I graduated in '07. So I'm so excited to be here today, and thank you for that lovely, lovely introduction. Okay, let me get the PowerPoint going. Okay. Yes, so today we're going to be talking about turning your blog into a brand. And as mentioned, my beginnings for my blog came from my love of food and my love of food history, particularly. And for me, it was a very circuitous journey. I kind of didn't really know what I was doing at the beginning. And I sort of, when I sat down to write this, I thought, okay, what lessons can I impart on you guys so you can skip all of my mistakes and just kind of get right into it? And also, it's been interesting just being in the blog community for a while, seeing how things have been developing and changing. It really is a changing landscape. And I was just at the head table talking with everybody about how the market really has been shifting now towards web and marketing, far away from broadcast and advertising, and it's been changing quite a bit. So it's a really exciting time to be online. It's a really exciting time to be a blogger, and there's a lot to learn. So I'm going to kick it off and basically talk about how to turn your blog, so that could be an actual blog like mine, like a classic blog, it could be a Tumblr, it could be a social media presence, it could be a YouTube channel. It could be basically anything, like a small business that wants to have more of an online presence. All of these ideas should be able to sort of apply to what you want to do. Because the idea is you're taking sort of your own personal brand and utilizing it in a way so that you can basically turn it into a career. So to kick it off, your blog is your platform, your brand is you. So when you're talking about a personal brand, it truly does mean personal. It means you. And so in my case, that took a little bit of learning. It took me 5 years to figure out that that's what that meant. So once I sort of got a sense of who I was and my personal message, it was really easy to sort of hone in on what exactly that brand was. So essentially, your brand is the aesthetic construct of who you are. So for instance, when you're walking down the street and you see something and you say to yourself, that is such a Jonathan Adler pillow, or oh my gosh, those leather pants are so Kate Moss. That is very great personal branding at play because you can assign an object to a person just based off of inferences of who they are. And that is something very specific. It's something that's been cultivated, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So first things first, if you are thinking about starting your own blog, I would encourage you to treat your blog like a job, but please don't let that be your only job. It's really important to, just understand that the road to being a successful blogger or a successful web presence is filled with a lot of frustrations and disappointment because there's a lot of people out there doing the exact same thing you are, and to have a voice stand out among so many is really challenging. And it's very important to just make sure that you are constantly growing and changing and learning yourself, and because that's going to completely realize your blog. If I didn't have my experience here at CMC and my love of history, my love of politics, my obsessive love of libraries and research, I would in no way be able to have the blog and the sort of career I have today. So it's really important to constantly diversify and sort of grow. So let's see, moving on. So I think I'll go through the outline of what we're doing today. So first things first is talking about basically what is branding. So we're going to talk about what is branding, and more importantly, what does good branding look like? We're going to talk about how to develop that brand for yourself, how to build that brand internally, which means basically the things you can do to make your blog better, and then building that brand externally, which is a fancy way of saying marketing, and then how to make money off of that brand, which I think will probably be of interest to everybody, because if you're starting a blog or some kind of online presence, it's usually with the intention of being able to generate income from that. So the first thing is talking about branding. So branding is basically the essence of your blog or your product. It's the communication of the characteristics, values, and attributes that clarify what a particular brand is and is not. It's a lot of words, but essentially it just means sort of how people perceive you. It's people's perception of you. And it's funny, a lot of times you might have a different perception of yourself than others do. And it's really important to get clarity on that so that you actually have a true sense of what your brand actually is. So your brand can include your blog's message and content. It can include your blog's look and tone, your logo, your color, fonts, and other elements, all of basically the aesthetic things coming together to create a web page and a home that really does read you. Your brand also extends to your partnerships with other bloggers and collaborators, and it also extends to who you choose to collaborate with on a sponsorship level as well. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So why is branding important? Branding promotes recognition. So this is sort of an obvious one, but basically if you have a distinct brand, it means that when people look at your content, they immediately identify it with you. And if you have a very distinct look, that means they're going to be searching that out. They're going to be thinking of you. You're going to be top of mind. You're going to be sort of their first resource for content. Next one is, it helps you maintain clarity and focus. I hate this phrase, but being on brand is very important, because as you start developing content and creating content on your blog, it needs to be consistent. If it's all over the place and feels a little bit random and scattershot, people are going to not really know what to make of it, and you're not going to have consistent viewership either. So you need it to be absolutely consistent as you go. And then consistent branding builds trust with your audience and your advertisers. And this kind of goes back to sort of what the previous one was saying, is that consistency is key here. You need it to feel the same every single time, because then people know what to look for when they come to you. And it also means advertisers are going to trust you. It also means that when it comes to your decision-making process, your readers are going to trust you. They're going to go, okay, this is something that feels very true to who you are. I understand this. And I think it goes back to the thing as well that when you're sort of figuring out what exactly your personal identity is, it's really important to be authentic. And that kind of sounds like something you'd read on a bumper sticker, but it's very true. There's so many voices out there, and it's very hard to stand out. But the easiest, and I think the sort of most core thing you can use to stand out is you. So there's a million food blogs out there. I am one of a million food blogs. There's a lot of food blogs that are much more popular than mine, but the reason why I'm able to kind of be here and have cultivated a career is because mine has a very distinct voice that is very true to me. And I think that when you start building out your own blog, that is what you need to tap into, is what are you adding? It always needs to be a value add. It needs to be something you're giving. And you can't forget that at the end of the day, it's a transaction. You are exchanging information and entertainment to readers in exchange for their time, and that time turns into ad sales. So that's basically what's happening. You need to make sure that you're giving them a product that they love and they're excited about and they want a lot of, so that you can then turn it into something bigger and more exciting and kind of venture out from there. Okay. So now we're moving on to what to me is the fun part, which is sort of developing, did I left the wrong page? Yeah. Basically developing your brand. So this is now getting to the aesthetic part of it. So Before we get to, I guess, sort of the final look of it, we need to talk about the philosophy behind it. So I've sort of already discussed that you need to have a really strong sense of who you are and kind of know that. But you need to also understand sort of the message behind it. Mine is lazy person elegance. So it's basically easy, fun, unpretentious food that looks really beautiful but doesn't require a ton of effort. That's something that a lot of people can sort of, I guess, connect to. That's something that a lot of people are looking for. And so by delivering that in a way that is, sort of beautifully shot, really interestingly sort of put forward, people are, immediately connected to it. And so this also allows me to kind of pivot into lifestyle, beauty, and fashion as well. So you don't want to pigeonhole yourself too much. My blog definitely did not start that way. It started a lot more pretentious and fussy and kind of all over the place. So you definitely can always find a moment to rebrand and to restructure. If you just are working at this and it hasn't been working out, take a moment, sit down, and ask yourself some of these really important questions. So the first one is, what need does this blog fill? A blog should fill a need. There's a lot of needs out there, and they can be really simple needs. They can be, inspiration for style or fun ideas for DIY, but it does need to fill a need. It needs to be something that adds value to the world. And then what's your log line and elevator pitch? And most importantly, what's your hook? These are all really important because you basically need to know how to convey what your blog is to people in the outside world. If someone asked me, what's your blog about? And I said, oh, it's a food blog. That would kind of be, it's a cul-de-sac. That's not anything that they can't do anything with that. So you need to figure out a way to package yourself that it just sort of sends a message immediately and they're able to sort of understand who you are in a very concise manner. And this becomes very important when it comes to building relationships with brands and also sort of diversifying your collaborations as well. Another thing is, what are your regular posts? So you want to have consistent content on your blog. And so for instance, with me, recipe posts that is my bread and butter. That is what I consistently post. So you need to make sure you have a sense of, okay, what is the content people are going to come to me for? What is the content they want to see from me? The next question is, who is my audience? So it's more than just saying like 18 to 34-year-old females, which is my audience, but it's about understanding what your audience likes, what your audience dislikes. And you can figure that out pretty easily just by looking at the information that's given to you on your blog. You need to get into your Google Analytics. You need to nerd out on it. You need to sort of devour that information because it tells you so much. For instance, I was joking with some students today how my top 5 most favorited Instagram photos are donuts. And that tells me that the people who follow me and the men and women who like my content, they like things that are fun, indulgent, colorful, and kind of have a little bit of a nostalgia factor to it. So for me, that tells me a lot about what type of content I probably should be looking at. So interpret the content. It is not random. It's there for a reason, and you definitely should utilize it and harness it as much as you can. And then the next one is, who are your advertisers? Even if you don't have advertisers, just sit down and write down the list of people. When you think of brands that you like, brands that you want to be affiliated with, write those people down and think about why you like them, why you want to connect with them. And then once you do start your blog, you can make headway into actually forming real relationships with them. And then what's your 1-year plan and what's your 5-year plan, and where are you going with this? It just is helpful. It's not to say that you have to stick to this, but for instance, knowing that you would want to have a product line versus having a cookbook versus having a TV show. This is all really important information, and it will help you figure out sort of the path you need to be on to get there. For instance, if you wanted to have a TV show, you should probably be starting a YouTube channel. You should probably be doing a lot of on-camera work. You should probably be interacting with people in that milieu. Versus product line, that's sort of a completely different path. So asking yourself these questions and having real and honest answers is a really important way to sort of start your foundation for starting your own brand and your own blog. So this now moves into some of the fun stuff, at least for me. I love the aesthetic side of it. So if you've already created a blog, you need to ask yourself, okay, like, do I love it? Would I visit this blog? And is it easy to navigate? It needs to be user-friendly. And so if you haven't started a blog, or if you want to give yours a redesign, here's a few tips. First off, keep it clean. Minimalism is key. You want to keep it simple. You want to give a place for your eyes to rest. And I'm going to show some examples of this as we go through. Basically it allows you to emphasize the content. Minimalist doesn't mean it's boring. White doesn't mean it's boring. It just means that it's clean and it's aesthetically pleasing. You want to make sure your sidebar is clean and neat. You want to make sure your design elements are kept to an absolute minimum. And if you're going to have fun with something, have fun with color. You can use it in a really subtle way, but it's also a really great way to brand because you can use repetition of color. Next is make it personal. So this is where you can have a fun photo of your bio. You can have your Instagram feed up there. You basically want to incorporate personal elements that really do make your blog your own. And then fonts. I'm a font snob, I'm sorry. So when you are building out your own website, you want to make sure that you kind of use the rule of 3. Don't go beyond 3 fonts. It's going to look crazy. And keep it modern, keep it clean. You don't want to use fonts that kind of age themselves or feel dated immediately. So for instance, you wouldn't want to use like Papyrus or Comic Sans or something like that. You want to use something, I know, right, the 2. You want to use something that speaks to who you are as a brand, but also is timeless in a lot of ways. Okay, and I already reviewed that. Okay, so this is an example of Design Love Fest. This is one of my favorite bloggers, and this is a great example of it is so clean and so modern and so pretty. The color palette is gorgeous and very girly. You can just tell immediately, if you're a girl, you're probably like, this place looks fun. Like, it's fun, and like, she's so blonde, and look at how cute that photo is. Like, it's just great. So you know you're gonna have a fun time on this blog. You probably all follow it already, but yeah, so this is like great design working. And this is another thing, I will get to this later, but she's a professional graphic designer. She has a real job. Her job is being a graphic designer. You can see that at work. So this is where having like a real job and a blog job kind of come hand to hand, because she's been able to merge the two, where now she is just a total like wunderkind and like a graphic design extraordinaire. So it's really important to have that skill set in place and use it really, really well, whatever that skill set is that you innately have. This is Sarah Yates. Sarah Yates has a really adorable lifestyle blog called A House in the Hills. She started as a wedding photographer, and now she is basically a full-time blogger. But you can tell that her design aesthetic is also very clean, very minimal, but there's a few little like personal moments, like the House in the Hills logo has a little bit of a design element to it. It's more lifestyle, beautiful photography, and still very clean and modern. This is Local Milk, who is a professional food photographer and kind of like a soulful artist type out of Tennessee. She's amazing, but her blog is interesting because it's very moody, it's very homemade, but still you can see the theme of it's clean, it's modern, it's bright, it's uncluttered. So when you're thinking about sitting down and creating a brand, you want to make sure that it's consistent with your personality. You want to make sure it's something you actually like, and you want to make sure that it's something that people are attracted to and people can spend a lot of time on. If you're getting distracted by color and too many design elements, you don't want to hang out on that page too long because your eyes simply get tired. And so this way your eyes don't get tired, your eyes sort of eat the images, and you just want to sit there and be with it. And so this travels all the way to YouTube. This is one of the most successful YouTubers right now, Ingrid Nilsson. And you can see, this is not she doesn't have a blog, she does not have a web platform beyond YouTube. But every single different thumbnail has a really distinct vibe to it. This is playful and fun and girly and young and doesn't take itself too seriously. So you can tell that she's probably speaking to younger viewers, and those are the type of viewers that she's wanting to attract. But you can see like having a consistent aesthetic is really important with personal branding. Okay, so now we're coming to the part of building your brand internally. So these are the things that I have sort of learned from my experience that I think that everyone can kind of utilize here. So first off is diversifying your skills. So as I mentioned, like Sarah Yates is a photographer, Brie Emery is a graphic designer. I started as a food stylist and food photographer. So for me, it was really important to diversify my skill set from there. So I learned how to use important application programs to the work I do. I learned how to use Photoshop, how to use Final Cut, all of those things that really sort of take my work and elevate it to the next level. So the first thing you should do is buy a camera. Web is an extraordinarily visual format. I know that sounds really simple, but your iPhone is not your camera. So I would say if you need to invest, I know, sorry, did I just like destroy someone's, like no, I thought it was. It's a camera, and maybe like the iPhone 8 will be like a DSLR, but in the meantime, buy a real camera. It doesn't have to be super expensive and crazy fancy or anything like that, but you need something that elevates the look of your blog, and additionally, you need something that in a format that you can edit and play with. And so when you buy a camera, you basically put yourself in a position to just kind of, it opens the world up to you. Find your personal style. I feel like that is self-explanatory, but it's sort of reiterating the things that I've shown you here. Really own who you are. I mean, I have a girlfriend who's a very successful blogger who decided a bow in her hair was her personal style. I make fun of her because I'm like, now you have to wear a bow in your hair forever. Ha 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 ha. But she'll be the 45-year-old with a bow in her hair. It's great. But it's become her trademark. And her fans wear bows in their hair. When she shows up to events, everyone's wearing a bow. It's a thing. And it wouldn't be my thing because I'm not into bows, but she's into bows, and it works out. So have a personal style and really make it your own, and really own it in a way that feels kind of weird, you know, like this is a really intense attachment to this aesthetic style, but it needs to be, because that's how people immediately recognize it and immediately resonate with it. Learn Photoshop. Kind of touched on this, but for me, learning Photoshop was extremely important. Become your own graphic designer, become your own art director, become your own editor. Basically, do the jobs that you would otherwise have to pay people to do. This is, first off, cost efficient because you don't have to go out of pocket for something you can just do yourself. But additionally, it allows you to truly own your work. And it also allows you to sort of define your own timeline when it comes to the work you're doing. So learn Photoshop, for me, because I do video content, Final Cut was immensely important. But you want to, basically, whatever sort of genre you're moving into, you need to learn sort of the trade there. You need to understand it. And so that's where developing a skill set is extremely important. And then invest in your own creativity. And so, like I said, you need to add something to the world. You need to continue to grow. And so, for instance, a lot of what I do in my career is kind of tangential to the blog. So I create a lot of video content that doesn't even do that well on the blog. Like I create a lot of food videos, for instance. They're not my highest rated posts, but creating these food videos has given me sort of another outlet, and has also sort of created its own career on its own end, which is commercial directing. So when you are constantly creating new things, it allows you to sort of develop new skill sets and also kind of open yourself up to the possibility of a new audience. My audience on YouTube is completely different than my audience on Blogger. Like, it's just night and day, completely different people. And so, but investing in those two different realms has proven to be really great for me, because I can utilize both of them when it comes to building relationships with brands. Let's see. And then I guess moving on from here is start as you mean to continue. So if you're just starting out, this is the biggest lesson learned. This for me is the mistake. If I could go back, I would change it. Is to, when you start with an intention. Give yourself the time to take a breath and really set the foundation for what you're doing, because it's really hard to change it later. You know, you can change it, but it's so much better not to lose all of that brand equity you've already spent so much time developing, and to have it be consistent all the way throughout, and then work on just doing subtle tweaks, like kind of like blog facelifts, like along the way. But having to do a complete renovation can, a lot of times, you can alienate viewers from the past. You can sort of lose the SEO, or basically sort of the recognition of your website with new viewers. So start as you mean to continue. Really establish the blog that you want to be in, establish the one that you're really passionate about, and the one that you would want to visit by yourself. Like if you just were coming across it on the internet, you would go, oh, this place is cool. I really like everything going on here. And then this is kind of a side note, but stop stressing out. Don't be your own worst enemy. It's really easy to have aggressive FOMO when it comes to the internet, which is fear of missing out. It's really easy to see other bloggers at these amazing events, or other people doing cool things, or working with other brands, and to kind of get in your head about it. So take a deep breath, let it go, don't stress out about it, and just focus on creating very good work very consistently. And then additionally, when you decide to start a blog, you also need to decide, how often you want to actually post. So for instance, it could be once a week, once a month, but you just need to be consistent with that because your viewers are going to come to you and your growing readership will want to expect things on a consistent basis. So now this is where we get to fun stuff with social media. So this is basically how you can build your brand externally. So first things first is with social media. Everyone here, I'm sure, is on social media in some capacity, but you need to actually join into it. So that means that you need to engage people. You need to be commenting. You need to be making relationships. So I'm going to show you 3 feeds, actually, from some of the people we've already seen. This is Local Milk. It's moody. It's pretty. It's consistent. This is her Instagram feed. You could look at this and any one of these images separately and know that the same person took it. You know, it's so beautiful. This is Breeze, same thing, very consistent. She loves flowers. You know, she's very bright and sunny and fun. This is Sarah Yates, same thing. It's a little more lifestyle oriented, but absolutely beautiful. And then this is mine. I like cats. But you can see that there's a consistency in look, style, framing, and it also means that then people will then see your social media as an extension of your brand. It means that they're going to basically kind of take you in on every single platform possible. Let's see. Yes, so basically you need to use social media. This is an example of Instagram, but this works on Twitter and your Facebook page, whatever. It needs to be consistent and it needs to be curated. So for instance, I don't post more than like 2 times a day because that's crazy. You don't want to block up anybody's feed. You want to only post absolutely gorgeous photos that push your brand forward. So a lot of these, you know, I mean, some of these I will keep in my phone for a couple of weeks until the right moment to post them because I want to be careful about how I put my brand forward. This isn't a place when you're talking about a brand identity to mix in your sort of personal life with it. You need to make sure that it's a very, you know, clear statement of kind of who you are and what you value and care about. So collaborations are so important. Collaborations basically for me have been one of my major sources of audience growth. This is the one I did with my buddy Ingrid. She's extremely popular, and I hate to say it because it seems kind of it's an unfair truth, but the way to get a better and bigger audience is honestly collaborating or working with people who have a larger audience than you. It's just math, basically. I mean, you can have fantastic SEO, you can create beautiful, consistent content, but if there's so much beautiful content on the internet that unless there's a direct path for people to see yours specifically, people aren't going to really come across it. So establishing collaborations with people who have a larger fan base than you is a really important way to do that. So for me, I'm constantly doing collaborations with different bloggers, and it's also really important to dovetail. Ingrid's a beauty blogger, I'm a food person, but that's perfect because her fans like food, my fans like beauty, and we're not in direct competition. It's not like a sort of a thing where, you know, we kind of share the same fans. Her fans aren't familiar with me and vice versa. So it actually is a really great sort of transaction of, you know, fans seeing and being exposed to 2 completely different brands. Next is syndications. So syndications are when you basically create content that exists on another platform consistently. So I have multiple syndications right now. I do work on, this is from today actually, this is with laurenconrad.com. So I do work on a lot of different platforms and it's consistent, it's every month. And here's the thing, if you're putting together a package of well-written content, well-done creative, a beautiful image, and you just deliver it to them once a month, it's amazing how many different platforms need things like that and want it. So if you can offer them that, people will take that opportunity all the time. And it's great because then they will promote you, and then in turn, you actually get that promotion. So it ends up working out really, really well to your benefit. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to a larger audience. Like Lauren Conrad's audience is amazing, and that's the exact type of girl I want to be speaking to. So it's a perfect sort of symmetry when you think about like, okay, that's the person I want to be collaborating with consistently. So outlets. Outlets refer to news outlets. So I'm really sort of strategic and cynical when it comes to news outlets because, for instance, everyone saw Rihanna's pink gown, right? She looked like a cupcake. I do dolly cakes, and I thought, okay, if I do a dolly cake of the Rihanna thing, which is now very trendy and now, I'm pretty sure I can get it to be on a different, like on a publication of some kind. So when I did the dolly cake, I photographed it and I sent it to a couple of publications I thought would like it, like BuzzFeed, People, and Refinery 29. People picked it up. So when you you need to think strategically about what you're doing. So for me, it's food, but if for you it's lifestyle or beauty or makeup, you need to do things that are on trend and now, and things that people want to see, and that you can basically give to a news outlet, and then they will want to promote it because everyone's talking about it in that moment. So it means that you kind of have to, I had to wake up at 6 a.m. and go to Target and find a Barbie and turn her into Rihanna. So, that was my day. But it was a good investment of my time because People Magazine picked it up. So it's kind of sitting back and being strategic about how you can get your content out there in sort of unexpected ways. So events are another great way to do this. Events are so fun because it's a chance for your blog to actually come alive. Your blog basically is existing in two-dimensional images, or maybe a video, but to get to sort of share it with real people, it actually takes it to a whole new level. And this is also a great way of people kind of becoming familiar with you from a doing position rather than just like watching you from afar. So I will sometimes cater small events if it looks like it could be a really good public relations kind of moment. So for instance, I did like Leah Michelle's birthday party, and what worked out there was that her fan base became familiar with me. It was a great way to kind of get to do what I love with other people, and it was once again a great way to sort of introduce myself to a whole new audience. So it really is about sort of finding those opportunities and making the most of them. So next is, how do you make money from a blog? There's two ways. There's internal revenue and external revenue. So internal revenue is selling products on your blog. So a lot of bloggers do that. They'll develop their own products and sell it out of the blog. Workshops, which means that you teach people how to do stuff. You can either develop these online and sell them as online workshops, or you can do them in real life and have people come visit you and you show them how to do something. And freelance work. If you use your blog as sort of a portfolio, people will come to look at your work and you will get work from that. Like for instance, with me, my blog worked as my portfolio for a while when I was looking to become a commercial director, and then that's how people became familiar with what my video reel was. So it can be a lot of different things, but this is the best way to sort of get internal work where you don't have to rely on outside sources of income. So next is external revenue. So this is mostly ads. So this is an example of what advertising on a blog typically looks like. So those are side click advertisements. This is the most passive way to make money because you just have it existing on your blog. You don't think about it. However, it also is the least lucrative for that reason. Unless you have an extraordinarily popular blog, you're not going to really see a lot of income from that. However, there's also sponsored posts. So to me, sponsored posts seem to be the best way to earn an income from blogging. You basically work with a brand, and they, in exchange for you sort of creating a post around one of their products, that is sort of what the transaction is. So this is a video I did with Anthropology that was utilizing all of their products. so that's a good example of, I think, sponsored posts kind of at what I think is their most organic. So for instance, I have sort of established my brand as the sort of the food video brand. And so when I got to collaborate with Anthropologie, I pitched them this idea for doing a dinner party video, but making it how-to, but without it being so on the nose. And so every single product that was on screen was an Anthropologie product. And so I developed an entire menu for them that then existed on their blog. And it just shows that you can actually create really fun, really exciting sponsored content that doesn't feel like such an annoying advertisement, that you're going to turn off viewers with immediately. This is one of my most highly watched videos on my YouTube channel. People really love it, and it's because it doesn't feel like an ad. And additionally, I love Anthropologie, and the people who watch my YouTube channels love Anthropologie. So they don't feel kind of put off by the fact that it's an ad. They actually enjoy it because this is a brand and a lifestyle that they really appreciate. So when it comes to doing sponsored posts, there's all types of different sponsored posts you can do, but it's really important to kind of stake your claim in what you are excited about and what you enjoy doing, and try to push the direction of those partnerships, I guess, towards that. So for me, I do a ton of video content, and I'm really clear about how I want to do that video content and how I see that coming together. And when it works out, it's great, and this was really fun to shoot. So the other thing you can do is sponsored social media posts. This is becoming super duper popular, and this is a good example of, I did something with Blue Diamond recently, and typically they'll want you to include a hashtag, but it's another way of sort of basically generating an income, but doing it through not directly your blog, but the audience you've built from your blog. And I think, once again, this is a photo that looks like anything else that would be on my Instagram feed. This doesn't feel different. It doesn't feel out of place. And I think it's when you are starting to sort of create these brand partnerships, it's about making it feel like just an extension of your blog and not something that people are going to resent or find sort of shoehorned in there. And then this is kind of where, if you've established a big enough audience, there's some fun things you can additionally do, such as Oh Joy is an immensely popular blogger. She developed a product line with Target. So as you expand your viewership, as you expand your brand identity, you can then hook up with other brands to actually create physical items. My sister, who's a jewelry designer, has done collaborations with other people kind of at her same level of popularity to great success. So it doesn't, Oh Joy and Target is like the dream team. It doesn't have to be those two things. You can find someone, like for me, it would make a lot of sense to hook up with a local apron maker and do like a special design of Kitschy Kitchen aprons. Like that would be like a totally organic kind of merging of those two things. So just kind of have an open mind when it comes to opportunities and sort of where you can see that product design happening. And then, sorry, I definitely have to end with this, but cookbooks. Publishing is another thing you can do. In my case, because I'm a food writer and photographer, a cookbook was a really natural way to go. And if you do find yourself wanting to write a book on the thing you are excited about, you can either self-publish, which means you can just do that yourself and have complete control, or you can pitch your book idea. And here's the funny thing is, publishers are looking for new content as much as anybody else, and you don't necessarily have to be a mega blogger to get a book deal. You just have to have an idea and a package that immediately says yes. So once again, it comes to down to delivering something that's a fully realized idea. So the imagery has to be great, the copy has to be great. Computer died. And the copy and the creative has to be great. So you basically want to deliver to them something that they don't have to think about. And this is true when it comes to working with clients. This is true when reaching out to outlets. You need to be able to give them something that they just want to say yes to immediately. Well, anyway, so that's sort of my chat about the overview of, if I were to do it again, how I would approach blogging. But I wanted to leave a good amount of time for Q&As because I feel like this is such a personal subject matter and everyone's going to have something about sort of what their process is. So I wanted to open up the floor to you guys and sort of hear your thoughts and feelings and kind of answer any questions you have. But thank you so much. This was so fun.
We will now have time for questions. If you do have a question, please raise your hand and either Shannon or I will come by with a microphone. As always, preference goes to students.
Hi there. Thank
Hey.
you so much for your talk, and because I was at the demonstration, thank you for the brownie.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, so I'm someone who is trying to make, hopefully after college, a career related to food.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've noticed, for me growing up, my cuisine was always Indian. It was always a little bit, I guess, non-Eurocentric. And one of the things I've noticed in the Instagrams you showed and whatnot, it seems like the popular thing seems to be a little bit more, pastas and this and that. And I was just wondering, like, how is it hard to like reach out and branch out into other spaces? Does that not market as well? And could you comment on that generally a little bit?
Oh, for sure. Well, I would first point you in the direction of a brown table who is from Malaysia, and he does gorgeous, gorgeous food, and he's getting a lot of attention right now for his food photography. I think it comes down to when you're picking, when you're sort of pushing forward a cuisine that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with in like the mainstream, and additionally who maybe are intimidated by that type of cuisine, it's about then putting it in a context that they get excited about it. So for you, you're gonna be really focused on food photography. You're gonna be really focused on using easy, accessible, like can be found in any supermarket ingredients. So for instance, for dishes that might seem kind of exotic or new to people, I tend to try to keep it very, very simple and pared down, like 5 ingredients. Almost anybody can be comfortable with a 5-ingredient recipe. And additionally, if it's shot in a way that looks really beautiful and really interesting and they just want to eat it immediately, that just adds that appetite appeal and draws them in. So you're right, there is a bit of a hurdle there because like I said, like my top 5 photos are donuts. Like everyone, it's like people love really simple carbohydrates. They love pasta. They love, it's like, it's true. And I mean, there's a reason why they're very popular. So if you want to introduce people to, cuisine that's really personal to you or cuisine that's not part of the mainstream, you just need to present it in a way that is very eye-catching and that pulls them in immediately. And I think also for you, your narrative is a big part of that. Because anybody can have a pasta recipe, but for you, if you have something that really is, from you and from your heart, and it's part of your culture and heritage and that kind of thing, that's a really important message to put in there as well, and to have that be part of it. Because story is very important to people, and if they're attracted to your story, they're also going to be connected to your food. Yeah. Great.
Hi, thank you for your talk, and thank you for the several brownies I've eaten since 4 p.m. today. My question is more from the, I guess, the viewer's point of view. How do you balance making organic content that is sponsored and attractive to your customers with maintaining that kind of integrity of your brand, of your personal kind of journalistic, I guess, integrity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it comes down to working with brands that you genuinely love and that you actually use. So for instance, I've been approached by brands who I've never used their product before, and honestly, it just didn't seem like a very good fit, and so I've passed on them. But when I have brands that I actually use, I've used those products, I like those products, I think my fans will like those products, that's sort of, to me, the sort of dividing line. And then additionally, it's once again just making the content I'm creating around that product actually value added. So for instance, like with the Blue Diamond thing that I referenced, that was for Super Bowl, and I did 3 really easy Super Bowl snacks. So I developed these really basic recipes that anyone could do that were really delicious and fun and easy, and very much sort of towards someone who didn't want to have to spend a lot of time in their kitchen. And so they did really well because of that, because people wanted an easy, fun recipe, and they didn't mind that it was an advertisement in the process because they were getting genuine information and content from it. So it is a balancing act, but I think the integrity thing comes from actually working with brands that you genuinely like. And then the creating content around that comes from being kind of creative and finding a way for it to feel true to who you are and true to kind of what your viewers expect from you.
Thank you so much for coming. How do you kind of generate that batch of initial followers? I mean, you kind of brought us through steps 5 through 10, but how do you go to 0 through 5 to kind of get that established brand?
Totally. So it kind of, some of the stuff I touched on and that I can go into more detail on is, for instance, actually it's really funny that you asked that question because I'm helping a friend through this exactly right now. One of my friends is starting a new business, and it's a baking business, and she's trying to get sort of online buzz leading up to the launch of her new brand. And so what we did was we basically set up a time, and I showed her how to shoot her food properly. So she now can shoot her baked goods really beautifully. So the food photography is great. So for instance, if you were doing food, it would be about making sure your pictures were absolutely gorgeous. And so when you start an Instagram or, you know, a blog or what have you, the beginning steps really come down to collaborations. So I would recommend, if you are starting from 0, reach out to people from the 5,000 to 200,000 range. Anyone above that, they're not gonna know who you are, they're not gonna wanna connect with you. But anyone in that range, that's kind of the sweet spot of people who are still kind of open-minded to cold calls in a way. You know, it's like they'll get someone who, if you're a genuine fan of theirs and you're like, I really like your stuff, I'd love to collaborate, or, you know, you comment on their feed constantly, they're probably gonna comment back. You know, and so it comes down to sort of building relationships with people. So for instance, okay, let's just pretend you wanted to start, like, similar to my friend, like a baking company, and then have a blog surrounding baked goods. I would recommend that you have a backlog of really beautiful food photography, and then you reach out to like outlets and other bloggers who have similar content, and then you can fill that need. Hey, I have a fantastic recipe, like with this beautiful photo that I think would be perfect for, you know, Easter. Do you need an Easter post? And then they'll say, oh my gosh, yes, I would love an Easter post. And then they take your content and they promote it online, and then you basically regram their photo. And I'm not kidding, it is so surprising how many outlets need content. There is an enormous audience and an absolute deficit of content. So if you just, I'm like, my whole MO is I am just a content machine. All I do is create content. And it's because I have so many syndications, and it's because I want to kind of get myself out there as much as possible. So if you create a lot of content and you pitch it to people, they will respond to it. But it's about pitching it to the right people. Sorry, I was long-winded.
Hi, thank you for your talk.
Sure.
I know very little about food, so this is a very third-person question.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about your product, which is your recipe or the dish itself,
Mm-hmm.
That gets a customer like me hooked onto your brand?
Yeah.
The reason I'm curious to know, because in a two-dimensional marketing platform, I don't have the taste of the dish or the smell of the spice or the feel of the texture of the pasta. What is it about your brand that'll get me, who's not an early adopter of food blogs, hooked onto your brand?
Well, that's an excellent question, and this is where the visual really is key, because for me, I'm very lucky where I started as a food stylist. So I have a skill set in making food that shouldn't be appetizing, like look absolutely appetizing. And so for me, with my recipes, what I found is, okay, Pinterest kind of describes exactly what you're sort of touching on, which is all it is a marketplace of images. And it's like a game, like which image is this person gonna click on? And more importantly, which one are they clicking through to? Most people don't actually make any of the recipes they're pinning. They're not making any of the recipes they're commenting on. They just like the idea of making those recipes. So I'm that way. I think most of the time, because I think most of the time people are in a rush and they, want to do something easy. They don't want to have to think about the food they're making, but they'll see this beautiful photo of this really thoughtful dish and go, oh my goodness, that's so pretty. I'm going to put this away because one day I'll have that dinner party and this will be the dish, right? Like I think that same way too. I have like a backlog of things I cannot wait to try. So it's about the visual for me. And this works for beauty and fashion as well, very visual mediums. You want to create an image that is so enticing, so beautiful, it speaks to what it tastes like so distinctly that the person can't not want to engage with it. They just want to eat it immediately. I mean, that's how I feel about like an egg yolk dripping. Like I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I just want it right away. So it's about really tapping into that visual. So yeah, to answer your question, it really is about just perfecting how you approach food. So yeah, because if I take a photo with a flash on my phone of a thing, like no one's gonna click on that. It could be the most delicious thing in the world. It could be beautiful and thought out, but if it's not presented in a way that's enticing, no one's gonna click on it.
Hi, I'm Tegan, and I was wondering that, so sort of in keeping with that other question of how did you go through steps 0 through 5 or whatever,
Yeah.
when you started your blog, were you planning on it becoming this massive thing through which you can create your own income? Like, did it just start as something and then you realized it was popular and then you got serious and you're, oh, I want to go somewhere with this? Or did you start it as...
It was kind of a mix of both in a really inefficient way. I was really bad about how I started my blog. I started it and I didn't think about it from an income. I didn't ever think of my blog as being the thing that could generate an income. I thought of it as a platform that would then generate my income, if that makes sense. I always used my blog as a portfolio. So it was the work off of the portfolio that got me work as like a TV personality or got me work as a commercial director. But the blog itself never generated an income. And it literally wasn't until the last 3 years when I started working on a cookbook that I realized the blog's a thing. Oh no, I have to make it a thing. I have to invest in here. And that's when I did a complete redesign. I sat down and I basically got all my ducks in a row. And similar with social media, I just kind of treated social media like I think how most people do, which is like it's a way to connect with friends and family. And it wasn't until I started my rebranding process that I realized, oh, I need to treat this as an extension of the brand. So I think that if you were starting out your blog now, I mean, I think that what I described as like the foundational elements, the things to really lay out at the beginning, that just allows you to skip through, like, for at least for me, what was a 2-year period of figuring out what on earth I was doing. If you know from the beginning, okay, I want a product deal, I want to do collaborations with these designers, and it can sound crazy. I mean, you're just writing it to yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody. But, you know, your hopes and dreams for this blog, if you know that that's your goal, you can actually draw a really specific path to that. And sometimes, yeah, sure, you might get sent on like funny little directions, but it'll just give you this really awesome way of sort of staying on track. So for instance, if you wanted to start like your own beauty line, right? Like if you, like The Gloss, for instance, did recently. Like The Gloss is an amazing beauty website. And now she has an amazing line of, you know, of beauty items. So what she was able to do is, you know, she started as having a really strong brand identity, a really specific aesthetic that people loved, and then that translated perfectly to creating product. So I think it's just about like setting up your foundation right, and then having a really specific goal as you move forward, and then collaborate, like seriously. It's the way you generate viewers and the way you generate ad dollars and attention is 100% by the people you work with. And if you're a pleasure to work with, if you are polite and respectful and really good on the phone and easy to work with, people will keep coming back to you. And so that's, for me, like I literally have gotten every single follower through doing stuff like that.
Thanks so much for coming.
Sure.
Who are your favorite Food Network stars and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. Obviously, Nigella. Nigella is my favorite because she can use a word like deliquescent and it doesn't sound completely pretentious. Like she sounds just like, oh yeah, totally. You know? It's true, right? I absolutely love Tony Bourdain. I kind of love grouchy old men. So like Tony Bourdain's like one of my favorites. I loved like David Chang's popped up on stuff, not really like Food Network-y stuff, but I love him as well. But yeah, I guess I'd say people who kind of have like a simpler kind of aesthetic. I really love the British food show aesthetic. Like Sophie Dahl has like this, it's like a dollhouse, like a food show shot inside a dollhouse. It's so cute. But I love that kind of British food show aesthetic. But
Thank you so much for coming this evening. Throughout your presentation, you used an acronym that unfortunately I'm not familiar with, SEO.
Oh.
And I was wondering what it is and why it's important.
Search engine optimization. So I am terrible with math, and I was not an econ major. So SEO has been a giant stumbling block for me. But basically SEO it comes down mostly to Google, and it's basically how Google ranks your site. It's how your site shows up. So if you were to type in the Kitschy Kitchen, if I was not the number one thing to pop up, there is something wrong with my SEO, right? Like, cause like how many other times could like the Kitschy Kitchen pop up? So basically SEO comes down to sort of the back end of your blog. So you can hire whoever is your web developer can do this for you, or if you want to be nerdy and do it yourself, totally fine. But you go in there and you basically are tagging every single post and every single image so that Google learns eventually that, oh, this is coming from a place. Okay, oh, this place is important. Oh, this place needs to have a higher ranking than it does. It's not just a random group of names. It actually has a significance to it. So basically SEO is sort of giving your website significance, and it enables people to find it quickly. This is really, for me, it's very important on Google Images. If someone types in apple pie, wouldn't it be amazing to be the top image for apple pie? Like, could you imagine, you know, the power, like, could you imagine? But so small stakes. But, you know, so that comes from amazing SEO. And so it's something that I would, I don't know, whoever was at my demo today, I talked a lot about how, you know, having room temperature eggs is important. It doesn't ruin a dish if it's not room temp, but it helps it if it is. SEO is kind of the same way. Like, it's definitely important. However, you can still have an extremely successful blog with kind of okay SEO. You don't have to have like this top A+ SEO in order for your blog to be a success. It's just helpful if you do have good SEO. Sorry, anyway.
So on a personal level, so the summer I worked, you know, I'd work in an office for 4 weeks and then I'd work at home for a week. And when I was working at home, I generally just watched Law & Order SVU and the World Cup, and I didn't really do much. So what's the process like for you in terms of, like, what's your average day look like? And how do you kind of motivate yourself to, you know, go out and take interesting photos or come up with new recipes or explore new sites, or what is that process like?
Totally. Well, great question. Your day sounds awesome. That sounds like my kind of day. But no, for me, it's really funny. I've had some moments where, for interviews, for instance, they've wanted to shoot like a day in the life, and so they expect it to be kind of like Barbie Claire, where it's like in the morning, me on my computer, and then in the afternoon at the farmer's market, like, you know, as if like this is what I do all day. It's absolutely not the truth. The way I actually, it's really funny. I have, in my personal life, I'm extraordinarily disorganized and very all over the place, but then in my professional life, I think to overcompensate for that, I am extremely, really obsessed with like compartmentalizing everything. So when it came to the blog, and the fact that I have a blog, the YouTube channel, and a directing career simultaneously, which are each in their own separate careers, but I'm doing them kind of all like at the same time, and they all feed into each other. For the blog, for instance, I develop recipes and shoot them in batches. So I will set aside like a Thursday and Friday once a month where I will recipe test and shoot 20 recipes. And then on top of that, that means that then I generate so that's 5 weeks of content. I've been doing that now consistently to the point that I'm done with food blog posts through June. So I'm done. And then when it comes to YouTube shoots, I do the same thing. Because of my production background, I've been able to kind of optimize and make things as efficient as possible. It all comes from honestly nerding out over pre-production. If you just sit down and you say, okay, what do I need to do? And you do all of the organizational, really boring work at the front end, it then means that when you sit down to actually do it, it takes so much less time. And so honestly, I mean, most of the time it looks like I'm online shopping because I'm in sweatpants with my cat like on a computer. But it's because like Monday through Friday, I'm usually photo editing. I'm usually just sitting there answering emails, writing copy, photo editing, and responding to people. And it's because I've been able to kind of compartmentalize my time. So for instance, if you wanted to start like a lifestyle blog of some kind or be a YouTube personality or whatever, you just think about the type of content you need to create, and then what is the most efficient use of your time and creativity, and how is the best way to format that, and then do it on a day. I think people get really overwhelmed by the idea of, oh no, this needs to be my life now. Like, oh, I need to do something every day. No, you don't need to do anything every day. You need to do something once a month. But it needs to be dedicated time once a month, like 6 hours once a month where you do the thing and then you're done. And it's such a relief, but you've been very efficient and you've gotten it done. And that way you can create consistent content very far out, and it doesn't have to own your life, and then you're freed up to actually have creative endeavors. So, I mean, that's for me how I've been able to kind of juggle it. I've just sort of maintained, you know, basically just keeping everything sort of in its place very neatly.
All right, thanks again. So I guess my question is, a lot of the things that you do require, skills, right? Like learning Photoshop, learning how to edit a video. Like I talked to you at the table. I had a friend who wanted to do prank videos, and she said learning how to edit a video to be funny was very difficult. You know? And I guess I want your opinion on how much time one should set aside. Do you think that learning these skills, learning how to use Photoshop or pre-production, was that like a very intentional activity? Was it like, okay, Monday through Friday I'm going to do this, or did you take a class, or did it happen more organically? Because I'm sort of getting the advice saying like, no, let other people do it. And I guess my gut is saying no, I don't want to. I'd rather do it. So I was kind of wanting to know what that process was like for you.
Totally. No, your gut is 100% spot on there. Like, I mean, for me, probably the best thing I ever learned was how to edit, because when I was a food blogger who wasn't making any money, my side gig was editing. I would edit for like Pop Sugar, who hilariously I now collaborate with. But it's like I was an edit bay person. But no, so editing was very intentional, but that was because I wanted to work in film. So I started that when I was a teenager. I would hassle editors to help me out. But Photoshop was very specifically for the blog, because my sister would use my sister was a graphic design student. She would use Photoshop all the time, and I just was, I kind of just didn't, I tried to use iPhoto, and it just wouldn't really work, and so she sat me down and just went, here's the Photoshop, here's the tutorial, just use it. And I think that those two things, you don't have, for instance, with photos, Photoshop, yes, you should, it's expensive, you should get it. You should learn it. Set aside the 2 days, mess around with stuff. If you have a friend who knows how to use it, offer to buy them a coffee and hang out with them, let them teach you. With editing, on the other hand, for a lot of videos, if you're talking about something that's pretty simplistic, like it's a one take, or it's a very simple thing, like for instance, if you're doing more of a vlog where it's just you talking to camera and you're just jump cutting, which just means you just are cutting really simply, you're not overlaying anything. You can use iMovie for that. That's extremely intuitive. They actually based iMovie off of Final Cut now, the newest version. So, and it's also included if you have a Mac. So I don't think you have to necessarily get the Cadillac, but if that is your, I do recommend starting as you intend. If you intend on doing video content, it can't possibly be a bad idea not to invest in learning how to edit on a real editing program, because it'll help you out. And even if you decide not to be a vlogger at the end of the day, you now know how to edit video content. That is one job you know how to do. You can help friends out. It is so, for me, it's been just infinitely useful.
Yeah. Hi. So I'm curious, you spoke a little bit about sort of moving what you did with your cookbook and things like that, and I'm curious because I've been following a lot of discussions about things like the perceived legitimacy of YouTube and platforms like that, and blog platforms that are seen by sort of the general public as somehow not being as legitimate as other forms of media. And I'm curious if you could speak a little bit both to the sort of legitimacy of those platforms and how you bridged that gap into other forms of media, how that's sort of worked for you.
That's an awesome, awesome question. So it's really funny. I had a TV show on ABC for 2 years, and now I have a YouTube channel. And I have so much more fan engagement and such a higher, I think, recognition rate from the YouTube channel than I do from the TV show. And I think it's also a very large generational gap. For me, I was on that cusp where I was the first class that had Facebook, like that, you know what I mean? So I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 17 or something. So for, I think, people who are probably my age and older, YouTube is this kind of bizarre, what? It's just people talking? I don't know. I had, my friend Ingrid, who I referenced, when I was first introduced to her, she was I was like, oh, what do you do? She's like, oh, I have a YouTube channel. And I kind of was like, that's a thing? That can be a job? And then, of course, she's insane, literally, if we go outside, 13-year-old girls, chase after her. It's like the Beatles. It's insane. But it's a complete generational gap. If you talk to I went to a movie premiere. A YouTube channel created a movie starring Vine stars and had it on a premiere in Westwood where Star Wars gets premieres. And it had all the streets were shut down, screaming fans. It was a sight to behold. And that was the moment for me that I realized, oh, YouTube's a thing. Okay, it's a real thing. It's not a pretend thing. It's not, it's real. And the video production value that goes into creating YouTube content now is, it's not at the same level as, for instance, like commercial productions that I create, but it is very impressive. You're looking at people who have dedicated teams for, post-production. You're looking at people who have to have at least 2 shooters on set. Like, it's a real production. So anyway, to answer your question, absolutely YouTube is becoming a thing, but I don't think people are going to see it for that until, honestly, we're all off cable and we're all watching on Apple TV. Because honestly, what's going to start happening is these YouTube channels and MCNs that are basically creating really interesting content, they're going to have their own channels on, basically digital TV, and people are just going to watch it on their TV like they would any other program. So when you're watching Law & Order SVU and you can click over to Ingrid's channel, like immediately, all of a sudden they're on the exact same level, right? It's not like one's on a TV and one's on a computer. They're on the exact same platform. You're taking them in the exact same way. So I think that it's happening. Times they are changing. And then ditto with the blogging thing, to speak to that. I had massive amounts of insecurity when I first started and feeling very inept, feeling like, oh, okay, like this is not, like I have not proven my bona fides, like I'm not a real chef, like all of those insecurities. But this is the thing, is that basically the market has completely shifted away. Like the chef in the white toque of past, and like Martha Stewart had this very sort of top-down kind of teaching style, right, where a professional was teaching someone who is an amateur. What I've noticed with audiences now, they want a friend. They want they want Julia Child who dropped the chicken, they want that moment. They want this, oh no, I'm a real person, so people want something that's relatable and makes them feel better about themselves and makes them feel like, you know what, if you can do it, I can do it too. So I've actually noticed that, sure, like legitimacy, maybe not. Like I'm never going to be a restaurant chef. No one's ever going to mistake me for a restaurant chef. But I'm speaking to a completely different audience than a restaurant chef. So anyway, really interesting question.
I'm interested in your comment about monetizing this activity of yours.
Yeah.
Could you go through sort of step by step? You mentioned the Super Bowl and what you created for that.
Yeah.
And now you implied anyway that you monetized that. Mm-hmm. Could you sort of go through a timeline and how you do that?
Certainly. So typically what happens with branded content, so in that case, it was a social media post I did for Blue Diamond that was surrounding the Super Bowl. Blue Diamond reached out to me and said, we want to do a collaboration with you. And so basically I then generated ideas to them. I said, okay, well, you wanted to come out surrounding the Super Bowl. Here's an idea for some fun party snacks. And then they said, okay, that sounds great. And so in exchange for me developing the content and then posting it on my channel, they then pay me a fee for that. So it's almost like having a model or an actor do like a spokesmanship. Like, so if like Brad Pitt's in Japan, like with a watch, like he got paid for that because it's he's the spokesman for that. So it's sort of a similar dynamic where I'm getting paid for my audience and I'm getting paid for the content I create for them. So that's basically what happens for all of those. Like Anthropology, it was the same thing. I actually reached out to Anthropology. I emailed them and said, I love you guys. I would love to collaborate in some fashion. And they went, great. Do you want to do something for our new fall line of home goods? And then we pitched ideas back and forth and then developed a production budget based off of the idea. And then that's how the video came to be. So it sort of changes, but it's very similar to like, I think a classic spokesman brand kind of relationship.
We will have time for one more question.
I'm sorry to keep bothering you.
No, it's fine.
It's basically one of the things that Dante mentioned, that we're both so I live with him. We're both in the senior apartments, and one of the things that I've realized is that I'm very much into cooking, and so this talk has been, I guess, important in that sense. Yeah. But I just kind of wanted to press you on another point, if you didn't mind me doing so, which is, I guess, the reference to so the blog, the Brown Table and whatnot. Yeah. Which sounds great and is absolutely something I would check out. Yeah. I'm just wondering if you could comment though on the fact that the table as a concept, the idea of food and whatnot, and what we're all eating has to be qualified as, say, brown, to have it be acceptable for there to be other French, non-European. And I know that's tricky because that's what most people have grown up with, but I was just wondering if you could comment on the fact is that something that mass markets appeal like a little bit more than, say, perhaps the actual diversity that is America?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to the name of his handle because he chose that for himself. However, I mean, I think that, once again, it just comes down to, he's brilliant at his photography, and he's getting a lot of notice for that. So, I mean, I can't really speak to the mass market of the United States other than, I think that our leanings are obviously Eurocentric for, based off of our history, but then additionally, it's kind of what is available unless you are in like a very specific region. Like, for instance, I was born in LA, so for me, like, having access to amazing Mexican and Central American cuisine and marketplaces was not difficult whatsoever. But if I wanted to pitch an idea to a brand, I would have to use ingredients that anyone at any place in the United States could find. So it can be inspired by a different cuisine, but it still has to be accessible to a very, very, very large demographic of people. So I think if you wanted to develop content that manages to be accessible to the largest possible proportion of people, but then still is within a certain sort of culinary avenue, it just once again comes down to simplification of sort of content and making it so that it's easy for people to kind of fold it into their own lives. Like, for me, even getting people to do stuff that kind of feels maybe a little bit complicated, like a layer cake or something that requires brining beforehand, like adding one extra step, it's really interesting to see the fall off in basically audience connection. They're not interested in doing that like extra step. They want something that's easy and that's fast. So I think that if you wanted to create content that feels true to you, but then also appeals to a broad number of people, you kind of end up mixing both of those together. You do some things that you're really passionate about and that you want to share, but then you do other things that you know are going to appeal to a really broad amount of people, which then usually means like kind of simplifying things to a level that maybe you wouldn't typically be comfortable with, but that's the best way to kind of get your message across and introduce your brand to those people.
Fortunately, we are all out of time. Please join me in thanking Claire Thomas.
Thank you.